How much are Liz Truss's problems to do with presentation, and how much are they to do with a faulty economic prospectus? Jo-Anne.
I think it's a lot more complicated than simply being about presentation, although she was absolutely right this morning to concede that what she called the rolling of the ground hadn't been done properly. The problem for her is that the rolling of this ground hasn't been done for the best part of 30 years. Tax cuts are just not a particularly popular idea, and you can't suddenly introduce them into this environment without, I think, a considerable lot of work done to explain why something that might sound very sort of controversial can actually have benefits that go into the economy and will help people beyond those people who appear to be being helped simply by the tax cut itself.
Interestingly, on this programme yesterday, Sir Alan Duncan said they've been dying to do this for years, but it was rushed, not thought through, and it's incomplete, Charles.
Yeah, it was. I was puzzled why they needed to do it that Friday. It was the eve of the Labour Party conference. I don't know whether there was some thought that maybe coming up with a tax-cutting package on the ahead of the Labour Party conference would be smart thinking. They have been dying to do this for years. I still think that actually economically a lot of what was announced was reasonably sensible, but the pitch rolling was virtually non-existent. And I think in addition to Jo-Anne's point about preparing people for the logic and good sense of tax cuts, the ground hadn't been prepared about the end of quantitative easing and what's the easy money that we've lived with for the last 12, 13 years since the financial crash, which means that we've all been living in a bit of a la-la land of very, very low interest rates and very, very low inflation.
Yeah, and that's a global.
Yeah, global, but actually interest rates were going to go up here anyway, regardless of what happened last Friday.
Back to the cricketing analogy and ground rolling, which is so lovely. You and I have discussed right here on this programme during the leadership campaign, Truss saying, I'm going to reject Treasury orthodoxy, I'm going to be radical, I'm going to do this. She spent 6, 7, 8 weeks of that leadership campaign saying, this is what I'm going to do. So it's not that it came out of the blue, it's simply that people hadn't been prepared in detail.
Well, it's partly that, and it's partly that she went about this, or she and her Chancellor went about this in something of a gung-ho manner, and they haven't gone through the processes with the OBR, etc., etc. They haven't done the diplomacy behind the scenes, and that's partly what spooked the markets. Now, I understand in part her justification for not having done that it can take quite a while for the OBR to fully formulate what their advice was going to be, although they had offered it. And I think it is characteristic of somebody who wants to move radically and fast, but she's already finding out that actually, whilst that might sound great if you're in a think tank or if you're trying to make your case during a leadership election, you have to deal with political realities and you have to deal with the realities of the markets. And this is what's now absolutely so starkly staring her in the face.